The forgotten room. The house on Sycamore Street had been abandoned for decades, yet no one in town dared to approach it. Some claimed to have seen shadowy figures watching from its windows, others spoke of chilling whispers that slithered through the air at night. An old man at the bar once recounted how his brother had gone inside on a dare and returned the next morning, silent, his hair turned completely white. Rumors swirled about its former occupants, how they had vanished overnight, how eerie sounds echoed from within its decayed walls, and how those who ventured too close often found themselves tormented by nightmarish visions. Some said the house was alive, its very walls pulsing like the ribcage of something waiting to exhale. Then came Daniel Carter, a documentary filmmaker obsessed with uncovering the truth behind urban legends. With his crew of 3, Lisa, his cinematographer, Brandon, his sound technician, and Aaron, his producer, Daniel arrived at the house, determined to capture its mysteries. Chapter 1, Crossing the Threshold. The air was thick with mildew and something fouler, something rotten, ancient. Daniel pressed forward, camera in hand, as Lisa and Brandon set up their equipment. Aaron, ever the skeptic, scoffed. "This is just another house. Abandoned, sure, but nothing supernatural." Brandon shivered. "Then why does it feel like it's watching us?" They ignored the ominous atmosphere and got to work. As night fell, Daniel uncovered something unusual, a door that wasn't on the blueprints. Its frame was made of an unrecognizable blackened wood, its knob rusted but ice cold to the touch. Strange carvings twisted across its surface, moving slightly in the dim candlelight, as if breathing. Lisa adjusted her camera. "This wasn't in any of the reports, right?" "No," Daniel murmured. "We're the first to document this." The crew exchanged nervous glances before Daniel turned the knob. The door creaked open, revealing a staircase spiraling downward into suffocating darkness. A putrid gust of air slithered past them, carrying with it whispers too low to discern. The air was thick, almost tangible, like fingers dragging across their skin. "We go down," Daniel ordered. Chapter 2, The Descent. The stairs stretched farther than they should have, winding deeper than the house's foundations should allow. The further they descended, the more distorted reality became. The walls felt closer, the air heavier, and the whispers, those whispers became clearer. Brandon's breath hitched. "Do you hear that?" Aaron nodded, voice tight. "They're saying our names." Lisa adjusted her camera, but the screen glitched, flickering between static and shadowy figures that weren't there in reality. Daniel pressed forward. "Just a trick of the mind." But it wasn't. At the bottom, they found a room. Not a basement, not a cellar, but something much older. The walls were made of stone, carved with symbols that made their eyes burn just to look at them. The symbols seemed to shift, rearranging themselves in patterns that made no sense. In the center of the room lay a large wooden chair, its surface covered in deep scratches, some resembling human fingernails. Chains dangled from the ceiling, each link oozing a thick black liquid that dripped onto the floor in slow, agonizing plops. A low hum filled the air. Then, a whisper, clearer than before. "Sit." Chapter 3, The Awakening. Lisa gasped, stepping back as shadows coalesced into the shape of a woman. The air around her crackled with a static charge, and the room grew unnaturally cold. The figure trembled, its movements jerky, as if struggling against unseen restraints. Wisps of darkness coiled around its form, tightening and unraveling in a slow, dreadful rhythm. A low, raspy sound, half whisper, half sob, escaped its lips, filling the air with an unbearable sense of sorrow and rage. Her body was translucent, twisted with anguish, her face an ever-shifting blur of emotions: grief, rage, despair. Her mouth moved soundlessly before her voice finally reached them, distant yet deafening. "They took me," the specter whispered. "They took us all." The camera crackled. The air turned bitter cold. Daniel swallowed hard. "Who took you?" A guttural growl vibrated through the walls. It did. Suddenly, the shadows around them deepened. The walls groaned as if breathing, the chains rattling violently. Then came the screech, a shrill, unnatural sound that made their bones vibrate. Brandon panicked first, bolting up the stairs, but the steps stretched endlessly. No matter how fast he ran, he remained trapped in the abyss. Lisa screamed, her camera shattering to the floor. The entity emerged, its form ever shifting, a mass of tendrils and hollow, gaping mouths. Eyes formed and vanished across its inky flesh. It reached for them, its fingers stretching longer than any human limb should. Aaron sobbed. "We need to go." Daniel held up his camera, determined to document what no one else had before. But as he filmed, the entity turned its countless eyes to him. A voice, not one, but many, spoke in unison. "You are not the first. You will not be the last." The walls themselves whispered, echoing in the deep. Hands, skeletal and rotting, began to emerge from the walls, their fingers clawing, reaching, desperate to pull them in. Chapter 4, The Escape. Lisa grabbed Daniel's arm and yanked him back. The moment his camera fell from his hands, the air shifted. The walls quaked, the chains snapped, and the specter let out a chilling shriek. "Run," she commanded. This time, the stairs obeyed. They ascended, running faster than ever before. The shadows howled behind them, clawing at their heels, but just as Daniel reached the top, the door slammed shut. Silence. They were back in the house. The room below no longer existed. But something had changed. Chapter 5, The Mark. Their equipment was fried. Their footage gone. Daniel touched his arm where the entity had almost grabbed him. His skin burned, a blackened mark in the shape of an eye branded onto his flesh. The eye blinked. Lisa gasped. "Daniel, your reflection." He turned to the dusty mirror. And his reflection. It wasn't him. It smiled, but not with his mouth. The grin stretched too wide, too sharp, revealing teeth that weren't his own. Then, slowly, the reflection lifted a trembling hand, its fingers curling in a beckoning gesture. A single drop of inky black liquid dripped from its eye, sliding down the glass like a tear. Its pupils were stretched, elongated, filled with writhing figures. And then, slowly, deliberately, it lifted a hand and pressed a single, rotten finger to its lips. And whispered his name. Even after they left Sycamore Street, Daniel felt the house calling to him. The whispers never stopped. And at night, when he closed his eyes, he could still hear them coming for him.